Hey, if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, I think you'll find China's Eastern Zhou Dynasty absolutely fascinating. Around 770 BC, China was not a unified nation but rather a land divided into over 140 feudal states, both large and small. These states formed alliances through marriages, waged wars against one another, and while they nominally acknowledged a single overlord, the Zhou king, they operated independently, fighting endlessly for land, population, and resources. This era of relentless conflict lasted roughly 500 years, and historians typically divide it into two periods: the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period. During the Spring and Autumn period 770 to 476 BCE, there were still over 100 of these states. Some powerful lords, known as the Five Hegemons, think of them as Roose Bolton or Tywin Lannister types, began vying for dominance. They justified their expansion by claiming to uphold the Zhou king's rule, much like how characters in Game of Thrones use the legitimacy of the Iron Throne to further their own ambitions. Then came the Warring States period 475 to 221 BCE, when things escalated into full-blown chaos. Only seven major states remained: Qi, Chu, Qin, Yan, Zhao, Wei, and Han. These kingdoms engaged in constant warfare, each trying to outmaneuver and conquer the others. It was an all-out battle for supremacy, featuring massive armies, advanced weaponry like crossbows, and ever-shifting alliances that changed as quickly as Littlefinger's schemes. Amid this turmoil, China experienced an explosion of intellectual creativity known as the Hundred Schools of Thought. Confucius, a philosopher who emphasized respect for elders and moral conduct, served as a moral compass in a world of disorder, much like Ned Stark's commitment to honor. Laozi, founder of Taoism, preached harmony with nature and going with the flow, offering a more laid-back philosophy akin to the wisdom-seeking masters. Then there was legalism, which believed in strict laws and harsh punishments to maintain social order. These different schools of thought spread from state to state, much like how characters in Got traveled across kingdoms, spreading their ideas in hopes of restoring stability. In the end, the Qin state, leveraging legalist principles, emerged victorious and unified China into 21 BCE, bringing the Eastern Zhou dynasty to an end and laying the foundation for modern China. The philosophies born in this era, Confucianism, Taoism, and legalism, continued to shape China's culture, politics, and society, just as the events of Game of Thrones shaped the future of Westeros. In this episode, I'll continue telling the stories of how Duke Wen of Jin and Duke Mu of Qin rose to dominance during the Eastern Zhou dynasty. After ascending the throne, Duke Wen of Jin reorganized internal affairs and promoted production, gradually strengthening the state of Jin. Like Duke Huan of Qi, he aspired to become the hegemon of the Central Plains. At this time, King Shang of Zhou sent an urgent plea for help. His half-brother, Prince Dai, had allied with disloyal ministers and borrowed troops from the Di people to seize the throne. King Shang fled to Zheng with only a few attendants and issued a decree calling on the feudal lords to escort him back to Luoyang. While some lords sent envoys or supplies, none were willing to fight the Di. Someone advised King Shang, only Qin and Jin have the strength to repel the Di. Thus, King Shang sent an envoy to request Duke Wen's assistance. Duke Wen immediately mobilized his forces, defeated the Di, executed Prince Dai and his conspirators, and escorted King Shang back to the capital. 2 years later, Duke Cheng of Song, son of Duke Shang, sought Jin's aid against an invasion led by Chu's general Cheng Decan, who commanded a coalition of Chu, Chen, Kai, Zheng, and Zhu. Jin's ministers urged, Chu constantly bullies the Central Plains states. If you wish to uphold justice and establish hegemony, now is the time. Recognizing that defeating Chu was essential to becoming hegemon, Duke Wen expanded his army into 3 divisions and marched to rescue Song. In 632 BC, Jin conquered Cao and Wei to Chu-aligned states, capturing their rulers. Duke Cheng of Chu, unwilling to fight Jin, ordered Cheng Decan to retreat, but Cheng Decan, confident of victory over Song, refused. He sent a defiant message: "I may not guarantee victory, but I will fight to the death." Angered, Duke Cheng sent only minimal reinforcements. Cheng Decan demanded Jin release Cao and Wei's rulers. Instead, Duke Wen secretly promised to restore them if they severed ties with Chu. They complied, infuriating Cheng Decan, who accused Duke Wen of coercion and marched his army to confront Jin. As Chu advanced, Duke Wen ordered a retreat. His officers protested. How can a ruler yield to a mere general? But Hu Yan explained, "Honor binds us. Our lord once pledged to retreat 3 days' march 90 li if facing Chu in battle. Keeping this promise proves our righteousness. If Chu still attacks, they will be at fault." Jin withdrew to Chengpu and prepared for battle. Chu's generals urged caution. But Cheng Decan pursued relentlessly and arrogantly challenged Duke Wen to fight. Duke Wen replied, "We have not forgotten Chu's kindness and thus retreated, but if you insist on war, we shall meet on the battlefield." When battle commenced, Jin's feigned retreat lured Chu into a trap. Cheng Decan, overconfident, charged blindly only to be ambushed and crushed. Duke Wen ordered restraint, merely driving Chu away without pursuit. Humiliated, Cheng Decan committed suicide on the retreat. Jin occupied Chu's camp, feasting on abandoned supplies for 3 days before returning victorious. King Shang, impressed, personally commended Duke Wen, who then built a new palace for the king and convened a lord's alliance, cementing his hegemony. Though Jin defeated Chu, Zheng secretly maintained ties with Chu. Discovering this, Duke Wen planned another coalition campaign. His ministers argued, "Our own forces suffice, why involve others?" But Duke Wen insisted on inviting Qin, per their mutual defense pact. Duke Mu of Qin, eager to expand eastward, personally led troops to Zheng. Jin camped west of Zheng, Qin to the east. Terrified, Zheng sent the eloquent Zhu Jiwu to persuade Duke Mu. "If Qin and Jin destroy Zheng, Jin alone will benefit, growing stronger at your expense. But if you spare Zheng, we can host Qin's envoys as they pass through." Duke Mu, swayed by self-interest, made peace with Zheng, leaving 3 generals and 2,000 troops to guard its north gate before withdrawing. Jin's officers, furious, urged attacking Qin's rear guard. But Duke Wen refused. "Without Qin's help, I would never have regained my throne." Instead, he secured Zheng's allegiance and withdrew. The stranded Qin generals, enraged by Zheng's betrayal, reported to Duke Mu, who though displeased avoided open conflict with Jin. In 628 BC, Duke Wen died, succeeded by his son Duke Shang of Jin. Seizing the opportunity, Qin's hawk surged attacking Zheng during Jin's mourning. The Qin generals in Zheng added, "We control the north gate, a surprise attack will succeed." Despite objections from veteran ministers Jian Shu and Bailey Shi, Duke Mu dispatched their sons Mengming Shi, Shi Qishu, and Bai Yibing with 300 chariots to raid Zheng. In 627 BC, Qin's army entered Hua territory, where they were intercepted by Shan Gao, a cattle trader posing as Zheng's envoy. He gifted for ox hides and 12 fat cattle, claiming, "Our lord welcomes you and sends these humble offerings." Mengming Shi, realizing Zheng was forewarned, aborted the mission, sacking Hua instead. Shan Gao had actually acted on his own, sending a warning to Zheng, which then expelled the Qin generals. Jin, learning of Qin's plot, set an ambush at Mount Zhao. Eskin entered the treacherous pass. Jin sprang the trap, annihilating their army and capturing all 3 generals. Duke Zhang's mother, Wenying, a Qin princess, persuaded him to release them, lest Qin-Jin relations worsen. But after their escape, the furious general Shan Chen convinced Duke Shang to pursue Mengming Shi and his comrades, fleeing to the Yellow River. barely escaped on a boat as Jin's pursuer Yang Shufu arrived, mockingly offering horses. Meng Ming, she shouted back, if we live in 3 years we shall repay Jin's kindness. Returning to Qin, the generals knelt in shame. But Duke Mu forgave them, the fault is mine for ignoring advice. He reinstated them to train troops for revenge. In 625 BC, Qin attacked Jin but lost again. Undeterred, Meng Mingshi redistributed his wealth to fallen soldiers' families, sharing hardships with his men. By 624 BC, Qin's rebuilt army, now 500 chariots strong and fueled by vengeance, crossed the Yellow River. Meng Mingshi burned the boats, vowing, no retreat. They reclaimed lost cities and humiliated Jin, which now refused battle. With Jin subdued, Qin buried the bones of their dead at Mount Zhao, avenging their shame. Western tribes, awed by Qin's victory over Jin, submitted, cementing Qin's new hegemony. As you can see, historical China was made up of countless small states that fought endless wars against each other, gradually emerging into the China we know today. Over these thousands of years of integration, countless fascinating stories unfolded. I am a Chinese high school student and in my free time, I create this video to share the stories that find most intriguing, thought-provoking and fun stories that will help you understand China better. If you're interested in China, have any questions about the country, or need travel tips for an upcoming trip, feel free to leave a comment under my video. I'll do my best to reply as soon as possible and provide whatever help I can. Thanks for following and liking.